Happy 2020, everybody. Have I got a question for you to begin the new year? What is the point of character creation? Yeah, I know that sounds a little bit strange. And of course, one of the objectives of character creation is to finish the process with, a sheet full of stuff that you can do and your dude that you're going to use to play the game. But each individual role playing game system has its own character creation mechanic, its own set of character creation rules, and they serve different goals because the setting, the genre, and the tone of the game put those questions in front of you as the player and implicitly pose them to the GM because this system will deliver a very certain kind of player character to the table. Now, there are, of course, some role playing games that have completely blank slate kind of character creation. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that it has its own flavor that it brings to the table, especially in the form of a lot of session zero discussions about what is and what isn't on the table, and a lot of collaborative discussion of what kind of character concepts will work for this campaign. Notwithstanding those generic role playing game systems, I had a bit of revelation a couple weeks ago. I was laying in bed under the influence of NyQuil because the holidays have been pretty rough around here. And it came to me as I listened to a friend roll up his first Traveler character using the life path character creation mechanic that system is so famous for. You know, the whole joke about how you can die in character creation. Well, it occurred to me that the Traveler character creation system serves a very specific purpose. Because in the setting of the Third Imperium, in the implied setting that's in the life paths and in the book, even naked of that setting, it's a prosperous universe. And, if there's a bright center of the universe, you're on the planet that's farthest from. You are a space hobo. You're someone to whom tragedy has occurred. Their careers have ended, and often not in a particularly pretty fashion. And they've decided to cut their losses and strike out on their own. Maybe because their family life didn't go so well, or maybe because they really can't go home for one reason or another. Perhaps a criminal past. Perhaps because they want to find the honor that they couldn't find in the armed services that they served proudly in. That's what Traveler's character creation mechanic can do. It can say, what kind of people in a prosperous universe full of incredible technology and fantastic luxuries choose to live out their lives, spending most of it in jump space and often really on the edge of their seat and in extreme danger when they're not stuck in hyperspace. And the question is answered by how you roll the dice and what sort of decisions you make for that character. And you could even find yourself immersed in the world and making decisions about how your character's life has gone and where you think it'll go. If you've lived, even as long as I have, then sometimes you throw up your hands and you say, this isn't working out. The direction that I'm headed in is something that I've got to back away from and find a new direction to go in. And that's the same thing that happens to your Traveler character. And I find it really fascinating how much it brings alive the duality between the very specific kinds of characters that often a role playing game is intended for, and the vast settings that the characters abide in, which can include very ordinary, everyday, humdrum people who are not adventurers. Now, one of my other favorite character creation mechanics is Hackmaster 4th Edition, which is a D&D 1st Edition derivative, but it has a lot of dice involved in the character creation system at the beginning, and is essentially a dare of how badass are you to undertake these adventures which are incredibly deadly. What kind of stops did you pull out to make a truly butt kicking adventurer who can sling spells and slice goblins with the best of them? And how are you special? Is the question that game is asking, and that the players get to answer in character creation. Let's take a look at the microcosm of the main characters of The Expanse, who I think really express some of what I'm talking about when it comes to Traveler. James Holden stood up for what he believed was right, and it cost him his career in Earth's Navy. His principles stick with him even as he turns to self employment, if you will. Naomi Nagata made some poor choices and had some difficult romantic partners that led her down some paths that she now regrets. She's trying to make amends, and she's found a companion, someone who's stuck by her through the years, in Amos. Now, Amos, he just happened to find his lucky way to the stars from a very dark past where he really had to do some things that he'd rather not remember in his childhood in order to simply eat. And I'll leave it at that. But it really reflects upon what kind of character he is now, and perhaps some of his berserk tendencies and why he's so ready to resort to violence in the present day. And let's not forget Alex, the pilot on The Expanse. He served with distinction. He got to fly the big toys in the war. He got to feel the thrill of being in the cockpit. And really, nothing else has measured up to that in his life. He came home and he started a family, and it frankly felt empty for him. It couldn't give him the same feeling of belonging that he had when he was in the service. And so he runs away from home, quite literally. He has his regrets, he has his second guesses about those decisions, but he's stuck with them now. Now, later on in the show, Bobby makes some similar choices to combine some of what happened to James Holden. And she finds herself no longer a Martian Marine. She served some terms with some great distinction. She, after all, began her time on the show as a gunnery sergeant. You can rise to precipitous heights with your Traveler player character. It may even be that you're leaving on a high. You're trying to live your best life now that you've kind of achieved a summit where you can walk away from your previous career and do what you've always wanted to. I mean, not to cast any great admirations onto the person, but James Cameron, the film director, has gone to the Challenger deep as well. And so it could be that your character, having achieved fame and fortune, having achieved distinction in their military service, they want to do something else. And they want to take what they've earned from that prior career. Maybe it's the ship that they've gotten. But ultimately, the question is, how did you become a space hobo? How are you a rolling stone? And I think the Traveler, even in the present day, is doing a great job of that. And yes, we are playing Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition in my little group lately. And I will have something of an impressions and overview video of that system. And I'm also doing a character creation walkthrough, which is a heck of a trouble as far as compositing and getting it all motion graphic-y. If you like that sort of thing, if you like the work that I do here on the channel, then I would encourage you to like and subscribe and get with gaming and ask the tough questions as you play here in 2020. Questions like, what is the point of character creation?